All right, so this is Sunny V2 video about an apparent death of Angry Birds. I didn't even know the game was still on. I didn't know it was going, but apparently it's dying now.
Back in 2011, Angry Birds was everywhere.
But actually, believe it or not, I did download Angry Birds back in like 2022, maybe 23, and I was playing for a little bit. I was like this close to spending money on it, but I didn't.
Had multiple different games, toys, and movies, generating hundreds of millions of dollars. But by 2019, they were firing masses of staff, and since then things have only gotten worse. Perhaps it's just karma for stealing the initial idea. Angry Birds wasn't an original concept. In April 2009, a game was released named Crush the Castle, which required players to fire a trebuchet into a wooden structure hiding medieval people. Well, 8 months later, in December 2009, game developer Rovio made an app named Angry Birds, which, while clearly being a ripoff, was better in every way.
I'm not gonna lie, when I played Angry Birds as a kid, I just grew like super autistic. Like, I was just so into that shit. It made me act different, and that's all I'm gonna say.
It had cooler, cleaner animated graphics, and different stages, each with different levels.
But that's the thing, when I downloaded this game in 23 or 22, I did notice like the huge amount of like paywall that they added, all the microtransactions and everything that they added to the game. It ruins the experience, and honestly that's kind of why I quit, I'm not gonna lie.
Levels. You got points for every enemy killed, and points for every bird you didn't use, giving players the chance to compete for high scores. Throw in 5 different birds with 5 different abilities, as well as a cool catchy soundtrack, and it's easy to see that Angry Birds was better. They developed 51 games prior to Angry Birds, none of which saw even the smallest bit of success.
Really?
Therefore, when Angry Birds took only 2 months to become the #1 paid app in 60 countries, they understandably took the chance to milk it, then make loads of different varieties like Angry Birds Seasons, Angry Birds Space, and Angry Birds Star Wars, helping it become the #1 paid app in Apple's App Store with 6 to 7 million paid downloads.
Yo, Angry Birds low-key setting the trend for microtransactions.
Angry Birds' first year, they'd made $10 million US, but players still demanded more. We have so many fans who have asked for the plush toys, so these are going to be available in a couple of weeks, and we're really trying to build Angry Birds into this entertainment franchise. It took only 4 months before that announced 60,000 Angry Birds soft toys have been sold, as the game itself became the best-selling paid app of all time. Within Angry Birds itself, they'd implement microtransactions like Mighty Eagle, which allowed players to pay to clear entire levels, with celebs like Justin Bieber even advocating for it. Angry Birds made $100 million in 2011 and went from 28 employees in the beginning of the year to 224 employees by the end of 2011. 5 months later, they set a new world record, first mobile game series to reach 1 billion downloads. They'd double their revenue again by the end of 2012, at which point they started to face a serious problem. The game was getting stale. They'd made multiple different Angry Birds versions, but hadn't changed the concept in over 3 years.
Dude, okay, the thing about that is though, like how do you can't really change the concept of the game, because then it wouldn't be Angry Birds. Like, I actually, believe it or not, like I actually think that what they did was a good thing. Like, if you change up like the atmosphere, maybe like make things a little different, like, oh, there's a Star Wars Angry Birds, oh, there's a, I don't know, fucking Pinocchio Angry Birds, like, I don't know. I think that's fine. And then maybe modifying like the abilities or the main birds or whatever is okay. But at the end of the day, the core concept of the game is always going to be you shoot a bird to take down the angry pigs, or you shoot a bird to save a bird, or whatever the case might be. That is it. That's the core concept of Angry Birds. Like, what more can you really do to change it up? I feel like the atmosphere, changing it, like, that's probably a step in the right direction, but I don't think that I don't know, like, I don't see what else you can really do, because that is the core concept of the game.
result in the following year, their profits more than halved, with Angry Birds falling to 59th in the App Store, forcing the franchise to try a new format. They'd release Angry Birds Go at the end of 2013, and while this was somewhat of a Mario Kart ripoff, people absolutely loved it.
So, I mean, it's fun. It is good fun. It looks good. It plays well.
Professional reviewers gave it 7.7, while people on Reddit called it their favorite Angry Birds game, and perfection
Really?
at its finest.
That's just a Mario Kart
Rovio
game.
therefore continued to experiment, releasing an RPG game named Angry Birds Epic, which again received incredible reviews reading, "The latest Angry Birds title is a welcome addition to a franchise, which hasn't seen much change since its inception back in 2009. Similarly, users said it might be the best RPG title I've ever played.
What?
honestly,
Yo,
pretty
I'm sorry. That guy has not played any good games if this is the best RPG. There's just no
time.
way.
I think the approach they went with here really worked and paid off.
The only problem was, these games didn't sell merch like the original Slingshot format. Therefore, merchandise sales plummeted, while total 2014 revenue dropped, and profits fell 73% to 10 million euros. As a result, media outlets reported, Rovio lays off 110 people as Angry Birds hype fades.
Okay, so here's the thing too about that. Like, no matter what you do, whether it's like someone that's, if there's a trend that's being set, or maybe like it's a popular game, or maybe it's, I don't know, oh, a popular streamer, a popular YouTuber, at some point that hype will die down. Doesn't matter what it is. Everything goes up and then it'll come, inevitably it'll go down. Case in point, no disrespect, but like you look at someone like Ninja, right? Bro was like the #1 streamer in the world when Fortnite first launched. Bro was streaming with like Drake and all these other celebrities. He was featured on Ellen, blah 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 blah. Inevitably, he comes down. People come down to earth. And the other thing is that I feel like the game is obviously catered more towards kids, and those kids that were able to play that game at that time start to grow older, right? So as time passes on, obviously these people stop playing Angry Birds, because let's be real, it's targeted for children. And basically they're growing up. And it's kind of the same problem that Pokemon has, where the game is targeted for kids, but its main fan base perhaps grew up with the game, and they no longer, it doesn't appeal to them as much as it would have in the past. Not to say that grown people don't play Pokemon and stuff like that, because I play Pokemon, but perhaps the things that other people want to see is like you take the anime, for example. People complain about like Ash all the time, sometimes how he acts so kiddish, or whatever the case might be. The anime is for kids. Well, yeah, that's what it is. It's catered towards kids. So, you know, people grow up, they get older, you lose interest. That's how it is. I mean, I don't know. I feel like the Angry Birds had the same kind of problem.
Representing
my
14%
opinion.
of the company's workforce. They try to fix their decline with yet another experiment, Angry Birds Pop, which was pretty unsuccessful. In a Reddit thread asking, out of all the Angry Birds games,
another thing, if they're completely monetizing everything, like with if something is filled with microtransactions, that's gonna deter people from wanting to play your game. Like if every single time you show up with an offer on the homepage saying, oh, buy this package, buy that package, you know, at some point, you know, people are not going to want to bother with that issue at all. And I feel like if they're monetizing, well, clearly, you know, they're greedy, right? But if they're monetizing everything, yeah, of course, people are going to not want to play the game anymore. That's the other thing, right?
one do you think is the worst? Pop was mentioned many times over. Therefore, they'd go back to basics and put out Angry Birds 2, the official sequel, although many called it a downgrade from the original. The sequel was filled to the brim with microtransactions,
there you go.
clearly annoying the fan base who wrote, "This is a
Exactly
very
what I just
greedy
said.
game that keeps sucking money out of you. If you play well, the game becomes harder and harder until it's impossible, and then you either have to replay each level 10 times or buy gems. The game is just trying to throw you off balance and get under your skin so that you pay more." The official IGN review said the game took significant steps backward for the massively popular series. Angry Birds 2 is missing.
Oh, here's my other point. The thing that I completely forgot to say is that for the time that it released, like early 2011, blah, 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 that it might have been really popular because it's kind of like it's like trend setting. It's setting a trend basically. Like there might not have been as many other good like mobile games out there at that time. So Angry Birds obviously it's a good game. But I feel like it has more time to shine when the competition itself is not as on par, I would say, or there's nothing really in their way. Like if you look at nowadays, there's so many different mobile games that compete. And clearly, I mean, there's a lot of mobile games better than Angry Birds because Angry Birds is not even on the top, like what, 50 of the App Store? I don't know, but it's fallen off quite significantly. So I feel like competition is also a big factor to why or at least it could have been a potential factor to why their success was so heightened back then. Just saying.
Key parts of what made previous games so universally compelling to gamers both hardcore and casual, young and old. Still, due to its intense monetization, Angry Birds 2 became their highest earning game.
Dude, I fucking hated that shit. This is the stuff.
Angry Birds 2.
This bullshit. I had this stuff when I downloaded the game in like 2-3 years ago. It was so annoying. You really have to get so lucky for this crap.
Became their highest earning game. Surprisingly, however, that very same year, that announced losses of almost 15 million and would fire a further third of their workforce, this time being over 200 people. This seemed to imply that Angry Birds was dead until they'd make an unexpected comeback. Turns out they'd spent the previous 3 years privately developing the Angry Birds movie. At a cost of 73 million, they'd made a risky bet, but with a star-studded
Why didn't you get Angry Birds 1? I did when I was younger. I was playing that shit like nonstop. I don't think I have it anymore, but I had an Angry Birds plushie, or like a pillow basically. And I used to use it, but I don't know what happened to it. My mom took it, like, and she just kept it eventually, and then I actually don't know where it is. We might have thrown it out or given it away because I don't think we have it anymore.
Studded cast and a fun little story, the Angry Birds movie did surprisingly well. It made over 350 million from its 70 million budget and put Angry Birds back into the public spotlight. People began replaying their previously released games, while Angry Birds theme parks popped up in different countries. Media outlets reported Rovio
Wait, what? Angry Birds theme parks? I've never heard of that. Hello?
Birds theme park.
What the fuck is that? Angry Birds theme park? What? That, bro, okay. Dude, okay, come on. The middle one is not even a theme park. It's just a playground. Activity park, yeah, I don't know.
Popped up in different countries. Media outlets reported Rovio Games had its best year ever in 2016. However, the gaming releases that Angry Birds was known for was still declining in quality. In his video, I played and ranked every Angry Birds game so you don't have to. Jake Miller talks about Angry Birds Action.
Angry Birds Action was the start of using the new anthropomorphic designs from the movies in their games, which I think most fans agree was the real beginning of the end for the series.
Which happened to be the first game after the movie. Similarly, in the Reddit thread asking about the worst Angry Birds game, one user implied it was most of them after the movie's release. Said games included Angry Birds Fight, aka a Candy Crush ripoff, as well as Angry Birds Match, which was described as extremely bland. However, thankfully for Rovio, their older titles were still extremely popular, with Angry Birds 2's revenue growing 47% in 2018,
Jesus.
Despite it being over 3 years old. This gave them the budget to make a second movie. However, their $65 million bet didn't pay off so well this time. Forbes wrote Angry Birds 2 is worse than the original in nearly every way, whilst Rotten Tomatoes critics added a distressingly ineffective sequel that grows less and less interesting and more tiresome as it unfolds.
Well, you know what they say. In a trilogy, the second movie is always the worst one. So, they just need to make a third movie.
Still, the movie made a profit of 82 million, right as the company was making some weird changes. Despite their older games being low maintenance, Rovio decided to completely stop updating them. Then, without explanation, some of the older beloved titles, including the original Angry Birds, were deleted from the App Store.
Wait, you gotta pay 99 cents to play the original game? What? I thought it was free.
Updating them. Then, without explanation, some of the older beloved titles, including the original Angry Birds, were deleted from the App Store. When people began to talk about what they'd done, people made compilations stating Angry Birds was dead. There were comments like, "Remember when Rovio actually cared?" whilst hashtag BringBack2012 began to trend on Twitter. Things got so bad that Rovio apologized, stating they only did it as maintaining the highest quality of updates and live operations isn't possible with our older games, in response to the backlash that announced they planned on redeveloping Angry Birds Classic, which was re-released on the App Store in 2022, but at a price of $1.99 with no in-game purchases. They'd changed Classic's name to Red's First Flight, making it harder to find in the App Store, thus prompting players to buy the newer, more profitable games. This successfully fooled some people who struggled to find it on the App Store, however others knew exactly what Angry Birds was doing. They got rid of the old ones so that you would have no other choice than to play the modern Candy Crush-esque games. They despised the games that made the company and so lost its spirit. Rovio basically confirmed this, openly stating they changed the name due to the game's impact on our wider games portfolio. They further requested that fans continue to bring that passion to our live Angry Birds slingshot games, such as Angry Birds 2, however players weren't too happy.
Yeah, see, you can't actually do that. They're basically just taking away something that people liked, like, in the first place. Like, the game that made them, or at least the original concept of it, they despised it. So you can't take that away and expect people to like whatever new content you put out. I feel like that's just a disaster, or it's a recipe for disaster. And it's no wonder Angry Birds kind of fell off, I'm not gonna lie.
We hope those fans can continue to bring that passion to our other games which have been designed to be more psychologically manipulative and stuffed with more microtransactions. Fixed it for you. The drama was so severe, it seemingly halted any future games.
Dude, I'm surprised
as Angry Birds Classic is still the most recent title released way back.
I'm surprised that they were even still going at this point. Like, even as early as 2022, they were still making shit. That's crazy.
2022. In 2023, Rovio was sold to Sega, although this has done little to fix their reputation. One recent tweet expressed, "I very much still love Angry Birds. That said, the current state of it is dog shit. My hope for the franchise is at an all-time low right now. I'll just continue to enjoy what I love about it, but it's sad to see what it's become. Despite everything, Angry Birds isn't finished, as they just announced they're making a third movie.
Hey,
although
dude, that's
with
what
the
I
rest
said.
of the franchise in decline, its performance might be interesting."
Yo, is that not what I said? I just said in a trilogy, the worst one is always the second one. So in order to, do better, then they have to make a third movie. And look, that's what they're doing. They're making a third movie. That's crazy. That is wild.